Hello all, welcome back to Time to Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite characters in Pathfinder and Starfinder 2nd Edition. It's the last video of the month, and longtime viewers know what that means. We've got a community picked build. All month long, we've been celebrating Father's Day in the most questionable way possible, by selecting the worst dad in all of fiction, and the community has spoken loud and clear. This month's pick is none other than Darth Vader. Turns out, chopping your child's hand off in an attempt to recruit them into your galactic dictatorship is considered less than ideal parenting. Regardless, Darth Vader may not be winning any Father of the Year awards anytime soon, but now at least he can claim to have won some kind of Father's Day award. So beware spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So what do we need to make this Sith Lord? Well, the primary source of the power of all Jedi and Sith is not their martial prowess, but their connection to the Force, and the Skywalker bloodline are particularly adept at using the Force as a powerful tool to accomplish anything from telekinesis to mental manipulation. Next, we need to be able to use a lightsaber with some level of proficiency. Anyone can technically wield a lightsaber, but it takes a Force user to effectively master the art of lightsaber dueling. And finally, we need to be a little bit of a bad influence, not only able to dispatch Jedi with ease, but also willing to win them over when the time is right. Darth Vader is more machine than man, but he's not quite an android yet, and there's no official cyborg ancestry yet, so we'll be sticking with the human ancestry. This gives us 8 hit points, a medium size, and an attribute boost to strength and wisdom. We'll pick up the versatile human heritage to get the weapon proficiency general feat for training in all simple and martial weapons, so that we can effectively use the plasma sword, which is pretty much as one-to-one with a lightsaber as these builds get. Well, except it doesn't have the finesse trait, and like 90% of Jedi are definitely dex fighters. But that's fine for this build. Darth Vader is about as non-dexterous as you can get, fighting more like a wall of death inevitably coming for you, rather than something you would see at a circus. For our background, I've got some good news and bad news. Bad news? We fell into a lava river while foolishly trying to fight someone who clearly had the high ground. The good news, though, we ended up with one of the coolest robotic bodies in all of fiction. The Saved by Clockwork background gives us a boost to strength and wisdom, training in the crafting skill, and a +2 circumstance bonus to all initiative rolls, as our mechanical components, mixed with our force sensitivity, let us react to danger with uncanny speed and precision. We're kicking this build off with a bit of a surprising choice, the Mystic class. I know what you're thinking, why not go with a more martial option like Solarian or Magus? Or lean fully into the Force powers with something like a Psychic. But hear me out. What truly sets the Force users like Jedi and Sith apart in the Star Wars universe isn't their combat prowess, it's their command of the Force, the energy field that connects all living things in the galaxy. The first line of the Mystic class literally reads, "You are a conduit, channeling the fundamental forces that connect and bind everything in the cosmos." That's pretty dead on if you ask me. Sure, we'll have to patch up the class's natural fragility, but nothing a little hard work and maybe a little dark side power can't handle. As a Mystic, we get 8 plus our con modifier, hit points per level, which already makes us hardier than most spellcasters. We're trained in perception because, well, let's be honest, seeing through that helmet can't be easy. And while we're also only trained in fortitude and reflex saves, which leaves us a little bit vulnerable physically, we become experts in will saves, so at least some Jedi mind tricks won't work on us. For our skills, the Mystic connection that we choose gives us occultism to represent our training in the dark side of the Force, but we'll also be picking up piloting for any pod racing that might happen, society for running the Empire, intimidation because fear is a surprisingly effective motivator when ruling a galactic dictatorship, and finally, athletics for being a force of nature on the battlefield. Our class only gives us training in simple weapons, which is why we had to pick up weapon proficiency earlier, and we also get training in up to light armor. But hearing from the cast interviews, the Vader suit is definitely heavier than that, so we've got our work cut out for us there. For our attributes, our strength is at a +2. You can do some damage with the lightsaber, but you can also move spaceships with your mind, so it's understandable if you start neglecting your biceps a bit. Dex is at a +0. Having most of your body replaced by machinery either gives you superhuman dexterity and agility, or the most rigid thing alive, and for you, it's definitely the latter. Con is at a +1. You've got a host of machinery keeping you alive, even if just barely. Wisdom is at +4. Your connection to the Force is your strongest weapon, so it will maximize the Force stat. And finally, Charisma is also at +1. You don't get to be the right hand of the Emperor if you don't have any leadership skills. Level 1 Mystics start strong with a Mystic connection of our choice. None of the available options are a perfect fit for Darth Vader, but the Akashic connection comes closest. It grants us access to occult spells, and reflects our talent for using the Force to extract vital, classified information from our enemies. This connection gives us the Akashic Fount spell, which lets us open a target's mind to the Force, granting them our occultism proficiency rank in a chosen lore skill. It's basically a knowledge drain in reverse. Sure, Vader's never been seen explicitly doing this, but if he can put thoughts into someone's head with Force suggestion, it's not a stretch to say he can put facts in there just as easily. We also get Mystic Bond, allowing us to link with up to 10 willing creatures, As long as we're on the same planet, we always know their general distance, direction, and condition. Perfect for keeping tabs both on our Inquisitors and a certain rebellious son, because I'm sure he's willing. Our Vitality Network represents how much Force energy we can channel at any given time. It holds 6 plus 4 hit points per mystic level, and powers our Transfer Vitality action, which lets us heal ourselves or allies using the network's stored energy. Technically, Darth Vader can't use Force Heal on himself. His constant pain is part of what keeps him focused on the dark side, and healing is enough of a relief from that pain to interrupt his connection to the Force. But that means healing allies is definitely fair game. The network also passively restores 4 vitality points at the start of each turn, ensuring that we never completely run dry. Just be cautious, ping pong healing is a lot riskier in 2nd edition thanks to the wounded condition. The Augmented Ancestry feat lets us grab a level 1 or lower augmentation for free. We'll go with Retinal Reflectors because the dark side is, well, it's dark. This gives us low light vision and a +1 item bonus to perception checks involving sight. As a spontaneous caster, Mystic Spellcasting gives us a spell repertoire. 1 connection spell per rank, plus 3 additional spells of our choice per spell rank. For cantrips, we get 4 of our choosing, plus our connection cantrip. For our cantrips, our connection spell is Scan Environment, letting us use either the Force or a nearby computer to scan the natural world within a 20-mile radius, getting general information about the terrain, weather, and ecosystems within the area. Telekinetic Hand gives us the most basic but iconic application of the Force, telekinesis. It creates an invisible magical hand that lifts small objects up to 20 feet in any direction, and each time we sustain the spell, we can move it another 20 feet. For a more aggressive application, Telekinetic Projectile lets us hurl a loose object at a creature within 30 feet. On a successful spell attack roll, we deal either bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, depending on the object of our choice. Shield conjures a magical force barrier that grants us a +1 circumstance bonus to our AC, and allows us to use the shield block reaction to reduce incoming damage by the shield's hardness. Finally, Eldritch Lance lets us blast targets within 30 feet with pure force power, dealing mental damage on a hit with a ranged spell attack roll, because nothing says join me like a psychic haymaker. At spell rank 1, our connection spell is Akashic Download, letting us tap into the Akashic Record through our comm unit to bolster a trained skill that uses recall knowledge. While the spell lasts, checks with that skill gain a +1 status bonus and treat critical failures as regular failures, and provide extra details on a success. Is it something that Darth Vader would canonically do? Not really, but we don't really get a choice in the matter considering it comes from our connection. For a more fitting spell, we get Kinetic Ram, which helps us keep our distance when enemies figure out that we're not too good in martial combat just yet. Using the Force, we push a foe back. 1 action targets a creature within 15 feet, 2 actions extends that reach to 30 feet, and knocks the target prone and deals bludgeoning damage on a critical failure. And if we spend all 3 actions, we push every creature in a 5-foot emanation, handy when we're not quite ready to duel the galaxy's best melee fighters. For an opposite effect, Gravitational Pull lets us pull weaker backline characters into our loving, force-choking embrace. It pulls a target within 30 feet up to 10 feet closer, unless they succeed at a Fortitude save. On a critical failure, not only are they pulled closer, but they're knocked prone. 2 actions increases the pull distance to 20 feet, and 3 actions pulls up to 5 creatures, with 1 casting the spell. Finally, Endure gives us a more lore-appropriate way to self-heal, granting us or a touched ally temporary hit points for a minute. A great way to represent Vader's unnatural resilience and refusal to go down. That's a lot of force powers, so let's pick up some Duelist Lightsaber training to balance things out. At level 2, we take Duelist Dedication, which grants us Quick Draw, letting us draw our lightsaber and strike in a single action. When you're the right hand of the Emperor, assassination attempts come a dime a dozen, so you don't want to waste time fumbling with your weapon when your allies decide to show their true loyalty. Another often overlooked aspect of Darth Vader's skill set is that he's an exceptional pilot, more than good enough to justify picking the Express Driver skill feat. When piloting a vehicle for long-distance travel, we can attempt a piloting check to boost its speed, increasing it by half on a success. The Empire is vast, and when you need to cross the galaxy at the drop of a helmet, this feat helps you get up to light speed. At 3rd level, Mystics unlock the ability to start a group chat. This feature allows us to telepathically communicate with all of our bonded allies, no matter where they are, as long as they're on the same planet. But it also gets even better. We can also use the network spell action to channel our force abilities through one of our allies' bases instead of our own, letting us strike from unexpected angles to help when we're not physically present, turning our allies into remote control conduits for the dark side. We also get reflex expertise and armor proficiency, giving us access to medium armor, a much needed upgrade for a class that's still a bit on the fragile side in a lightsaber duel. Now, we can stay stylish and survive a bit longer. For our rank 2 spells, we have to pick up Instant Virus to shut down opposing computers. One adjacent creature with a tech trait must attempt a Fortitude save. On a success, it becomes Glitching 1. Failure means it's Glitching 1 and Stunned 1, and on a critical failure, it becomes Glitching 2 and Stunned 2. We used to have R2D2 to handle these tech troubles, but now we have to do it ourselves. Selective invisibility lets us use fork cloaking to turn ourselves invisible to everyone except other Force users. A willing creature within 500 feet becomes invisible to all but a second target within range. If the invisible creature takes a hostile action toward anyone other than the visible target, the spell ends immediately. Technically, it's not confirmed that Darth Vader can use Force cloaking, but it's really cool, so we're going to give it to him anyway. Far-flung fetch lets us steal an unintended object within 60 feet, summoning it directly to an open hand, and if no hand is free, the object simply drops at our feet. This won't wrench a lightsaber out of an enemy's grasp, but it will let you retrieve an already dropped lightsaber, making it the perfect follow-up to the telekinetic maneuver spell, which lets us make a spell attack roll instead of an athletics check to disarm, reposition, shove, or trip a target within 60 feet, giving us some handle battlefield control from a distance. At level 4, we take a page from our old master's book and learn to play defensively with the dueling parry class feat. As long as we're holding a single one-handed weapon and nothing else, we can gain a +2 circumstance bonus to our AC until the start of our next turn, because nothing says I'm not messing around like a perfectly timed parry. We also get Intimidating Glare to let our menacing armor do all the talking for us. This lets us demoralize foes with a mere glare, replacing the auditory trait with a visual trait. No words are needed when your mere presence alone strikes fear. 5th level Mystics gain Fortitude Expertise and an Ancestry feat which we use to pick up Confident Actualization, letting us roll a saving throw or a skill check twice and take the higher result once per day. Some may call Darth Vader arrogant, but considering he's one of the strongest beings in the universe, I'd say a little confidence is well earned. For our 3rd rank spells, we're going to take a break from talking about Force abilities to highlight the benefits of Vader's Protective Suit, which grants us the Lifesteal spell. Whenever we enter an unbreathable environment, like underwater or a room filled with poison gas, a shimmering bubble surrounds us, allowing us to breathe in a vacuum or hazardous atmosphere, while also shielding us from extreme temperatures and even radiation. This effect ends as soon as we return to a safe environment. Alright, back to the Force powers. Levitate lets us lift an object or willing creature 5 feet into the air. Each time we sustain the spell, we can move the target up or down by 10 feet. While levitating, the target takes a -2 penalty on attacks unless they take an interact action to stabilize themselves. If they're nearby a stable surface, they can also climb or crawl alongside the wall. Paralyzed lets us do a similar thing for an unwilling creature, leaving them immobilized. The target must make a will save, and on a success, it's stunned 1. On a failure, it's paralyzed for a round, and on a critical failure, it's paralyzed for 4 rounds. However, the target can attempt a new will save at the end of each of its turns to reduce that duration by a round, or end it entirely on a critical success. Void Whispers lets us deliver our dark side pitch to a creature within 30 feet, forcing them to make a will save. Even on a success, the target becomes stupefied 1 for a round, as your words sow doubt. On a failure, the target wanders aimlessly for up to a minute, using all of its actions to step safely, but the effect ends if the target is attacked or threatened in any way. And finally, on a critical failure, the target also babbles incoherently, making any creature that starts their turn within 20 feet of the creature must make a save themselves or become confused for a round. At level 6, we find a more lore-friendly use for our Vitality Network, with the Network Shield feat. This lets us conjure a force barrier that activates when we're hit by an attack. We condense our Vitality Network into a shield, gaining resistance equal to twice our level against all damage from the triggering attack or effect. This is the first real way to deflect blaster fire, but don't worry, we'll still get a way to reflect it back at the enemies later on. We also pick up Quick Jump, reducing the cost of long and high jumps to just an action. Who says you need a set of working legs to leap over difficult terrain? Level 7 Mystics get Expert Spellcasting, and Level 7 Akashic Mystics unlock the Akashic Assistant Focus spell. This spell summons a floating, etheric librarian to aid the target, using our occultism modifier for aid rolls each turn. We can also redirect the assistant to another ally with a free concentrate action. Otherwise, it aids the same creature for the duration of the spell. Think of it as a droid with a hologram projector of ourselves, giving allies orders even when we're distracted. The Toughness General feat grants us additional hit points equal to our level, and reduces the DC of any recovery checks we have to make. Even Sith Lords reach 0 hit points eventually. For our 4th rank spells, Genetic Regeneration offers a bit of force healing over time, granting Regeneration 8, restoring 8 hit points at the start of each turn. But that's not all. While the spell is active, the target also can't die from damage or drop below dying 3, though it remains unconscious if its wounded condition ever becomes 4 or higher. However, acid or fire damage disables this regeneration until the end of our next turn, so make sure you're not using this against other enemies with lightsabers. Or lasers? Honestly, this spell might not be the best fit for a Star Wars setting. Instead, a better option might be something like a Jedi Mind Trick with a suggestion spell, letting you suggest a seemingly reasonable course of action to the target, avoiding anything self-destructive or clearly against their interest. The target must attempt a will save. On a success, they're unaffected, but they don't know that you tried to cast the spell on them in the first place. On a failure, though, they must follow the suggestion for up to a minute, or until it's completed or becomes obviously harmful to the creature. And on a critical failure, the effect lasts for up to an hour. Vampiric Maiden combines a Force Hold with a Force Drain, targeting a creature within 30 feet and dealing both piercing and void damage, and forcing a Fortitude save. And we gain temporary hit points equal to the void damage down for up to a minute. The damage scales like a normal basic Fortitude save, but on a failure or worse, the creature is immobilized for a round or until it can escape from your grasp. Finally, Rebelling Barrier raises a reflective shield against one incoming attack, granting resistance to one physical damage type from the triggering attack, and the attacker takes 5 damage of that type in return. This is how we begin to effectively detect and deflect blaster fire. At level 8, we pick up the Disarming Stance class feat. Entering this stance enhances our weapon control. While active, we gain a +1 bonus to athletics checks to disarm, and a +2 bonus on reflex DC against disarm attacks, and the ability to disarm creatures up to 2 size categories larger than us. Just to be clear, this is Disarming Stance, not Disarming Stance, so try to limit your attacks to a foe's weapons and not the foes themselves. We also gain the Akashic Eye spell, allowing us to use the Force to gain insight into our target. We make a Recall Knowledge check using our Occultism. On a critical success, we obtain 2 accurate pieces of information about the creature's past, present, or future. On a regular success or failure, we still get 2 pieces of information, but one is true and one is false, and only a success lets us differentiate which is which. And finally, on a critical failure, both pieces of information are incorrect. We have reached level 9 as a human, and that means we're contractually obligated to pick up the Multi-Talented Ancestry feat, officially becoming a champion of the Empire. This upgrades our armor proficiency all the way to heavy armor, meaning we can finally don our full iconic suit. Along with that, we gain the Resilient Soul feat and access to 5th rank spells. Wave of Warning lets us emit bad vibes so intense that even non-force users can wield them. It deals mental damage to a creature within 500 feet, forcing that target to attempt a will save. The Psychic Energy then jumps to another creature within 30 feet, chaining to additional targets until you choose to stop or one of them rolls a critical success. But if a creature fails to save, they become Frightened 1 or Frightened 2 on a critical failure. Repelling Pulse unleashes a Force Blast, dealing force damage to all creatures in an area, each making a basic reflex save. On a failure, the target is pushed back 10 feet, and on a critical failure, the target is pushed back 20 feet and knocked prone. Telekinetic Call lets us move spaceships, or anything up to 80 bulk, with ease. We can move a target up to 20 feet, even suspending it in midair, and each time we sustain the spell, we can choose to either move it again, or switch to another valid target within range. And finally, Mind Probe helps us figure out if our long-lost son has a twin sister that we might be able to convert to the dark side. We force a target within 30 feet to attempt a will save. On a failure, during the spell's duration, we can sustain it each round to ask a new question. The target can attempt a deception check against their spell DC to block or falsify their answers. But if they roll a critical failure against their original will save, that deception check takes a -4 penalty against us. At level 10, we gain our Champion's Reaction, and as an Obedience Champion, that means we can use Iron Command. When a creature damages us, we can react by forcing the foe to either fall prone or take mental damage for their trouble. Regardless of our choice, our strikes against them deal extra spirit damage until the end of our next turn. Turns out, attacking the strongest Darksider user in the galaxy is a terrible idea. We also pick up Powerful Leap, adding 5 feet of horizontal distance to our high or long jumps. Now we can force jump like we did in our youth, without shattering our knees in the process. At level 11, we pick up Die Hard, allowing us to survive up to dying 5 instead of dying 4. But we also get Greater Epiphany, unlocking the Data Drain focus spell, letting us leech both memories and thoughts from a target, dealing mental damage with a will save. On a failure, not only do they take damage, but they're stupefied 1 until the end of their next turn, and we get to recall knowledge about them. And on a critical failure, that stupefied condition lasts for a full minute. We also gain access to 6th rank spells, and there's some pretty powerful options here. Blessed Boundary lets us create a force shell in a 60-foot burst. The shell grants cover and can pass through solid terrain. It deals force damage to any creature that intersects it when it's created, or that tries to move through it later. Each affected creature makes a basic reflex save. On a failure, it's damaged, pushed back 10 feet, and its movement ends. And on a critical failure, the knockback is doubled. But the real star here is the 4th level spell, Telekinetic Strangulation. Arguably, Darth Vader's most iconic move. We psychically grasp a creature's throat with a vice-like grip, lifting them slightly as we make a ranged spell attack against their AC. On a hit, they take bludgeoning damage and become immobilized. Each time we sustain the spell, they take persistent bludgeoning damage, remain immobilized, and must hold their breath or begin suffocating. The target can technically attempt to escape, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Poltergeist Fury lets us go wild with our force throws. Loose, unattended objects of 1 bulk or less within 20 feet orbit us at high speed, dealing piercing damage to creatures in the area, and each time we sustain the spell, we can increase the storm's radius by another 10 feet, all the way up to 100 feet. This storm moves with us, granting us lesser cover, though it's kind of obvious, so we can't hide or sneak in it. Allies who succeed at their reflex saves gain a critical success, because even Darth Vader is above friendly fire. And finally, we gain Wall of Force, which lets us create Well, it creates a wall of force. It's a big invisible wall that's pretty much impossible to break through. At level 12, we pick up Champion's Resiliency, helping us cling to life just a little bit longer by adding 3 extra hit points every time we take a champion feat. The Sith are all about avoiding death, and this is one more way that we can stay alive while adding a couple new powers to our repertoire. We also gain the Consult the Spirits feat, allowing us to speak with Force Ghosts, though they may not be too eager to chat considering you're probably the reason they're Force Ghosts in the first place. At level 13, we gain the Bounce Back feat, letting us recover from dying once per day without gaining the wounding condition. Sith Lords don't stay down easily, and Darth Vader is definitely no exception. We also get Armor Expertise and access to 7th rank spells. Death Sentence lets us force trust a creature within 30 feet, dealing a massive amount of static void damage, or vitality damage if they would resist void. With Telekinetic Bombardment, we hurl a large piece of terrain at a foe, creating either a 10-foot burst or a 30-foot line that deals either bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage of our choice. This line can start anywhere within range as long as the entire area stays within range. And Spell Riposte lets us show foes that we are the strongest force user in the galaxy, not only counteracting enemy spells, but also turning them back on their casters on a successful counteract check. At level 14, Dueling Dance lets us permanently benefit from Dueling Parry as long as we wield our lightsaber, so we don't have to waste our precious action economy on raising our defenses. And the Intimidating Prowess skill feat lets us turn our massive strength score into a plus for our intimidation checks. At level 15, we get Numb to Death. The first time each day that we regain hit points while dying, we gain extra hit points equal to our level, and don't increase our wounding condition, and the Master Spellcasting feature increases our prowess with spells, like Falling Sky, which helps bring airborne foes back down to our level. Literally. A wave of crushing telekinetic force slams through the area, driving airborne creatures to the ground, and dealing double falling damage, even if they don't hit the ground. All creatures on the ground, or those forced to the ground by the spell, must attempt a Fortitude save, or be knocked prone and stunned. And with the Pinpoint spell, we can use the Force to track our sun across the galaxy, revealing the exact location and plane of the target, down to the building, city, country, or even the plane they're on. To target a creature, you must have seen them or possess a significant belonging of theirs. For objects, you must have touched or hold a fragment of that object, and this spell also automatically bypasses any detection protections of a lower rank. At level 16, we use the basic Devotion feat to pick up Divine Grace, a reaction that gives us a +2 bonus to saving throws whenever we roll one. Solid defensive upgrade for an unstoppable force of death. Sure, it's a bit late in the game to grab a level 2 feat, but we're mainly here to keep stacking on the Champion Resiliency extra HP. We also pick up Battle Cry, letting us attempt a Demoralize check at the start of combat as a free action, or when we drop a foe. Not that it really matters. If enemies aren't afraid of you by now, that just means they're going to die braver than most. At level 17, we pick up Persistent Confidence, so that we can use the boost from Confident Actualization once per hour rather than once per day. But I know what you're really here for this late in the build. You're here for the 9th rank spells. Like Detonate Magic, which lets us dispel magical effects on an opponent while dealing force damage to every creature in a burst around them. Or Telekinetic Tantrum, which is the pinnacle of our telekinetic powers. When casting a spell, and each time we sustain it, we can choose one of 3 effects. Back Off throws up to 15 objects or creatures up to 40 feet, making them take both bludgeoning damage and landing prone if they fail a Fortitude save. Hard Raid blasts an area with debris, dealing bludgeoning damage to everything in the area with a basic reflex save. And Psychokinetic Slam lets us make a ranged spell attack, dealing force damage to a creature and making it stunned 1. And the Foresight spell, giving us a 6th sense that warns us of danger, granting us a +2 status bonus to initiative checks, and preventing us from being caught off guard or flanked. At level 18, we use Advanced Devotion to grab a Reactive Strike from the Champion feat list. This lets us make a retaliatory strike against any creature who moves, make a ranged attack, or use a Manipulate action within our reach. And the Cloud Jump spell, which triples our long jump distance and boosts our high jump to match our previous long jump range. Forget lightsaber duels. At this point, I just want to see a Sith vs Jedi basketball game. At level 19, we pick up the feat Scare to Death, letting us intimidate foes so badly they might die. Sure, it's extremely unlikely, requiring us to critically succeed at a demoralized attempt, and then have that creature critically fail a will save against our effect. But it's just so cool and thematic that it has to go on this build. We also get Legendary Spellcaster, boosting our proficiency of the Legendary for our 10th rank spell, Fated Confrontation, which forces a one-on-one duel where only the 2 combatants can affect each other, meaning you can ensure a fated confrontation with your son without the Emperor trying to intervene. And finally, at level 20, we pick up Advanced Devotion once again, this time to pick up the Litany of Self-Interest feat, giving us a focus spell of the same name, to drive a creature of our choice further down the dark side. We inspire a target to focus only on self-improvement. A willing target can willingly fail to save, but otherwise the creature must make a will save. On a failed save, the target gains a +2 status bonus to attacks, perceptions, saves, and skill checks. but it loses the ability to aid a creature, and it can't count itself as an ally to anyone for spell effects. And for our final skill feat, we'll become a Force Ghost with Akashic Transcendence. Despite all the atrocities we've committed, this feat allows us to use the effects of Akashic Eye once per round rather than once per 10 minutes, as we truly become at harmony with the Force. Just forget about all those atrocities we've committed or those children that we murdered. And there you have it, our full build for Darth Vader, the galaxy's most iconic Sith Lord. Now we're ready to crush foes and command the Force from deadly telekinesis to unstoppable lightsaber strikes. This build captures the dark power and presence of the Dark Lord himself. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so that you never miss a build. Got a favorite character you want to see? Drop your ideas in the comments below. And until next time, keep rolling high, and we'll catch you in the next one.